Imagine a building that, from the outside, looks almost indistinguishable from hundreds of other city hospitals. The same austere facade, the same rows of windows. But if you walk around to the back, you'll stumble upon an unremarkable door, boarded up and sealed shut many years ago. It is behind this door that a journey into the past begins. The air inside is still and thick, like syrup, smelling of dust, old medicine, and something else, the faint, lingering scent of anxiety. Time here is not a river, but a frozen lake. We walk down a long, echoing corridor. Every step we take reverberates off the peeling walls. Light filters in only through the grimy windows at the far end, snatching overturned gurneys and stacks of yellowed medical charts from the gloom. Our destination is Ward 7. This door is unlocked. A gentle push, and with a creak that feels sacrilegious in this deafening silence, it swings open. What we see inside is astonishing. This is not a scene of slow decay, where nature and time gradually reclaim their territory. This is a scene frozen in a single captured moment. A photograph of a catastrophe. For beds, none of them made. The sheets are crumpled as if their occupants leaped out of them just a second ago. By one bed stands an 4 drip with a half-empty bag of saline, the needle ripped from a vein and simply dropped on the blanket. On the floor lies a crushed plastic ampoule, and next to it, an open magazine that someone was reading until it happened. This is not a scene of abandonment, but of sudden interruption. It feels as though a fire alarm blared, and everyone, patients, doctors, nurses, fled the room in a matter of seconds, leaving everything exactly as it was, like actors who have abandoned the stage in the middle of a play. But there was no fire, no earthquake. What could have made people run, leaving behind personal belongings, medicine, and even each other? The answers to these questions, I am certain, are hidden in the details, in the very objects left on the bedside tables, waiting to be noticed. In any investigation, you start with what you can touch. The grand mystery of Ward 7 is overwhelming, so let's focus on the small stories told by the objects left behind. I approach the first bedside table, its surface coated in a fine gray dust. A ceramic mug sits there, a dark, fossilized tea bag resting at the bottom. The tea is cold, of course, but the dark ring on the porcelain shows it was once full and hot. This wasn't a drink left to be finished later. It was abandoned mid-sip. A simple, mundane act, frozen in time, that speaks volumes about the panic of the moment. I move to the next bed. Here, the clue is more personal. A paperback novel lies face down, its spine cracked to hold the page. I carefully pick it up. It's a well-known thriller, and the bookmark is a simple train ticket, its date now hopelessly faded. The open page is 214. A character in the book is about to uncover a conspiracy. The irony is as thick as the dust in the air. Did the reader ever find out what happened next? Or did their own real-life thriller interrupt the fictional one? It's a chilling thought, the idea that a life with its small pleasures and routines could be severed so cleanly. But the most potent clue sits on the third table. It's a small desk calendar, the kind with a tear-off page for each day. It's turned to Tuesday, October 14th. The date is circled multiple times in red pen, the ink so heavy it almost tore through the paper. Beside the circle, a single, hastily scribbled word, tomorrow. What was supposed to happen tomorrow? A discharge? A special visit? A crucial surgery? This isn't just a date. It's a focal point. It's the anchor of this entire mystery. The day everything stopped was the day before something important. A cold cup of tea, an abandoned book, and a circled date on a calendar. Separately, they are just forgotten trinkets. But together, they paint a vivid picture of lives in progress, cut short without warning. These silent witnesses tell a human story, but they don't explain the event itself. For that, we need to look beyond the ward to the official records and archives. We need to find the story the hospital wanted everyone to hear. Every mystery has two stories, the one whispered by the evidence and the one announced to the world. To find the latter, I traded the silence of the hospital for the musty quiet of the city archives. After hours spent scrolling through brittle microfilm and digging through forgotten municipal boxes, I found it. A slim manila folder containing the official incident report, accompanied by a single newspaper clipping. The official story was clean, concise, and conveniently devoid of drama. The document, titled Incident Report 7B 1410, spoke of a cascading failure in the primary sanitation stack and a severe risk of biocontaminant backflow. In layman's terms, a catastrophic plumbing and sewage failure. The report stated that, due to the imminent health hazard, an emergency evacuation of the East Wing was ordered and executed efficiently. The language was sterile, impersonal. It praised the staff for their quick action and concluded that the wing was sealed off pending a full structural refit that, for budgetary reasons, never came. The newspaper clipping, a small article buried on page 9 of the local paper, echoed this narrative. Sudden pipe failure forces hospital evacuation. The headline read. It was a minor story, a brief disruption in the city's daily life, quickly reported and just as quickly forgotten. On the surface, it all made sense. It was a plausible, if unexciting, explanation. It neatly tied a bow on the whole affair. But here's where the neat, official narrative begins to unravel. A burst pipe might cause chaos, certainly. It would require an evacuation. But would it cause the kind of primal fear we witnessed in Ward 7? A plumbing leak doesn't explain the terror that seems to hang in the air. People don't flee a water leak as if escaping a predator, leaving everything behind in a split second. The official story explains why they left, but it fails to explain how they left. The fear was real, and it was disproportionate to a simple technical fault. The official report felt less like an explanation and more like a carefully constructed wall. And that means the real story is still hiding behind it. To break through, we can no longer rely on paper. We need to find a human voice. Paper trails and official reports can only take you so far. They provide a skeleton, but to give it flesh and blood, you need a human memory. Finding her wasn't easy. It took weeks of cross-referencing old staff logs with public records, but finally, I found a name, Evelyn Hayes, a registered nurse who was on duty in the East Wing on October 14th. She now lives in a quiet suburban house. Surrounded by a garden, she tends with meticulous care. When I first explained why I had come, she was hesitant, her eyes clouded with a long-dormant unease. But when I mentioned the official report about the sanitation stack, she gave a dry, humorless laugh. The pipes? That's the story they stuck with, isn't it? She said, pouring me a cup of tea with a slightly trembling hand. It was never about the pipes. According to Evelyn, the tension in the ward had been building for days, and it all centered on the patient in bed 4, the one whose bed was empty with no personal effects on the nightstand. He had been admitted under a different protocol with his chart kept separate. He was quiet, unnervingly so. He never spoke, never had visitors, and just watched the room with dark, vacant eyes. The other patients were afraid of him. They'd complained to the nurses, saying he made them feel cold, that he watched them while they slept. Then came the night of the 14th, Evelyn continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. I was at the nurses' station down the hall. I didn't see what happened, but I heard it. A scream. Not a scream of pain, but of sheer, unadulterated terror. Came from Ward 7. A second later, one of the other patients ran out, his face white as a sheet, just babbling nonsense. Before anyone could process what was happening, the head physician, Dr. Albright, stormed into the corridor. His face was a mask of panic. He didn't follow protocol, Evelyn recalled. He just yelled, "Evacuate! Now, get everyone out of the wing. Don't touch anyone. Don't take anything. Just get out." They were herded out into the night, confused and scared, while a different team in heavy protective gear went in. Evelyn never set foot in that wing again. They were all reassigned and strongly advised to forget what they saw and to stick to the official story if anyone asked. Evelyn's story shatters the neat, tidy narrative of a plumbing failure. It was a cover-up. The focus of our investigation has now shifted from a what to a who. Who was the silent man in bed for? And what happened in that room to provoke a scream of pure terror and a panicked, full-scale evacuation? The truth behind Ward 7 was never going to be found in a dusty archive. It was hidden in the space between the official lie and the eyewitness's fear. The key, I realized, was that the official report wasn't a complete fabrication. It was a clever misdirection. It mentioned a biocontaminant risk, and that, ironically, was the one part that was true. The lie was the source. The danger wasn't coming from the pipes. It was coming from Bed 4. The man with no name and no visitors was not a patient in the traditional sense. He was a subject. Cross-referencing the head physician's name, Dr. Albright, with declassified government research grants from that era led me to a shadowy project. A virology study funded by a defense contractor designed to observe the dormant stages of an engineered pathogen. The man in Bed 4 was a human test subject, a volunteer carrying a latent, highly contagious biological agent. Ward 7 was his holding and observation pen, chosen for its relative isolation within the hospital. The staff, including Nurse Evelyn, were unwitting caretakers, unaware of the payload their patient carried. Now, let's reconstruct the night of October 14th. The circled date on the calendar, tomorrow, was the scheduled day for the research team to arrive and move the subject to a secure facility for the next phase of the experiment. But something went wrong. The pathogen didn't wait. It activated prematurely. The scream that Evelyn heard wasn't from an attack. It was the shriek of a patient in the neighboring bed who witnessed the initial onset of symptoms. We can only imagine what he saw. Not a fever or a cough, but something terrifyingly rapid and visible. A sudden, violent transformation. A biological process erupting into reality. It was this horrific sight that sent him fleeing into the corridor, babbling in terror. Dr. Albright's reaction was not the panic of a normal physician. It was the pre-programmed response of a researcher witnessing a containment breach. His order, "Don't touch anyone, don't take anything," wasn't about simple safety, it was a quarantine protocol. He had to get the uninfected out before the airborne agent could spread. The team in protective gear that arrived minutes later wasn't a cleanup crew. It was a specialized retrieval unit sent to secure their asset or what was left of him and sterilize the hot zone. The entire sanitation failure story was a brilliantly crafted piece of disinformation. It explained the sealed-off wing, the presence of crews in hazmat suits, and the need for a long-term quarantine, all under a mundane bureaucratic pretext. The hospital was a victim of a burst pipe, not the site of a catastrophic bioweapon experiment gone wrong. Ward 7 wasn't just abandoned, it was contained. Standing once again at the entrance of Ward 7, the scene inside looks different. Now that we know the truth, the silence is no longer just quiet. It's the sound of a carefully enforced secret. The dust isn't a sign of neglect, but a testament to a successful quarantine. Every abandoned object, the cold tea, the open book, the circled date, is no longer a mystery, but an artifact from the last moments of blissful ignorance before a hidden world of danger ripped through the fabric of ordinary life. The fate of the hospital wing is sealed. The official story of a structural refit became a self-fulfilling prophecy. It was never repaired because it was never meant to be. The wing serves as a silent, permanent tomb for the failed experiment, sealed not by locks and chains, but by endless layers of bureaucracy and the convenient excuse of a lack of funding. It is cheaper and safer to let it rot than to ever attempt a decontamination that would raise unanswerable questions. What of the people? The other patients from Ward 7 were evacuated, monitored for a short period under the guise of post-incident observation, and then discharged. They never knew they were feet away from a level 4 bioagent. They went on with their lives, carrying nothing but a confusing memory of a chaotic night. As for the staff, like Nurse Evelyn, they were scattered and silenced. They were left with a trauma they couldn't explain and a story they couldn't tell, the psychological price of proximity to power. Dr. Albright, the man at the center of the storm, vanished from the hospital's public records. He was likely reassigned deep within the clandestine world that sponsored his research, his name scrubbed, his work continuing elsewhere. The hospital ward that was left after an emergency evacuation is, in the end, more than just an eerie, abandoned place. It is a physical scar, a monument to the chilling reality that some secrets are deemed too important to ever see the light of day. The empty beds and dusty floors are a testament to the day an invisible war spilled over into our world, only to be expertly cleaned up and denied. And so it remains, its silence a constant, humming reminder that the most terrifying stories are often the ones that are never told. The echoes in this empty corridor are not of ghosts, but of the truth, waiting patiently in the dark.